Welcome back to the cash receipting and depositing training. If you are listening to part 3 of this training, then you have completed the cash receipt spreadsheet practice and submitted it. So let's review what you've practiced. If you notice here, I have both checks on the cash receipt spreadsheet because you had to do 2 receipts. So for both receipts, you're going to have the yellow copies in front of you as you enter the information onto the spreadsheet. Now, for the sake of the fact that it was a template, the receipt number is the same for both, so I apologize for that, but we'll have to use our imagination. So the receipt numbers are already pre-programmed here. The first receipt would have you will put who completed by your name. You put the receipt date, which was 125/17. Bill Nye Realty was who it was received from. It was a donation. The payment type was a check. Your amount's 1386. You'll put the GL code that you wrote on the receipt, and then the deposit date, because it should be the same day the money was received, would be the same date. And that total deposit batch was just that one check, so it was 1386. Now you have a couple of days later, the next month, you have another receipt, same number, I apologize. It was completed by you, so your name there. The receipt date would be 2/10/17. It was from Florida Power and Light for Get Down to Business Luncheon, which once you're here a while, you'll know what that abbreviation means. GDTB is Get Down to Business, but you may have written it all out, which is fine. It was also a check. The amount was 5,000. Then you put the GL code that was already listed on your receipt, and for sake of the fact that they should be deposited the same day, the deposit date will be 2/10, and it was for 5,000. So now if these both were received on the same day, your deposit date will be 125 and your deposit batch will be the total of these two. So it'll be 6386. But because of this being 2 separate dates received, the deposit batch is differently. So, okay, so the 2 activities helped you to practice some of the main parts of receipting. If you still don't get it, accounting is here to help. So please contact me or someone else in accounting and we can help you with that. So moving on. What happens if you have written a receipt and then you realize at that time or later that some of the information is incorrect? Maybe you put the wrong payer name or date. Maybe you left off some change in the amount or put the wrong GL code. All of those are mistakes that are totally possible. They're human error. Any mistake that you make, however, means that you will have to void the receipt and write a new one. It's that simple. You don't have to, it's not a big deal. You just void the receipt that had the mistake on it and you write a new one. But you cannot change, cross out, or write over anything on the receipt. So if you realize, oh man, I forgot I put the 9th and I wanted the 10th, you can't write darkly the 10 on over the 9 or make a line through it and initial. None of that is allowed. So you must void and rewrite your receipt if you have any errors. So how do we void the receipt? Well, there's a couple of steps you must follow. You you must obtain the yellow and the white copy of the receipt. Staple all 3. So staple the 2 in the book on top of the yellow. On top of the pink that's already in the book. So you would find the receipt, the pink copy in the book, take the yellow and the white, put it on top and staple it together. And then you will write in big bold block letters voided over the receipt. So it'll get on all 3 copies. And then you will write a new receipt where, whatever new receipt's available. On the spreadsheet, you would also find that receipt number that you voided and you would write void in the line on where the receipt was written on the spreadsheet. Now, in order for us to be able to determine what receipt is replacing the receipt that you voided, on the spreadsheet next to the new receipt, you're going to write replaces receipt blah blah blah. And on the actual yellow receipt, the new one that you write, at the bottom left corner, you want to make sure you write, bottom right hand corner, you want to make sure that you write replaces receipt number blah blah blah. That way when we receive it in accounting, we know that, okay, this receipt replaces whatever voided receipt. And it's also good, like I said, to put it on the spreadsheet so that we can see that, so that when we're entering from the spreadsheet, we'll know we need to correct a receipt that was already written. So preparing the deposit. Now, just as I stated a couple of times before, deposits must be done daily. The same day that you receive the money, you must make a deposit. So what you would do is you would start by making 2 copies of the checks that you received. You can't make copies of cash. Don't do that. But as far as the checks that you receive, you want to make 2 copies. You're going to gather all the yellow receipts that you've already written out, and you're going to complete a deposit slip based on the total of those receipts. So based on how much you have, you're going to write deposit slip. Now, you're going to independently run 3 separate tapes. When I mean the adding machine tape, your calculator that has the adding tape, you're going to run 3 of them. One, you're going to add up all of the cash, the money order, and the check. So the actual money, the cash, the checks, the money orders are all going to be added up. Your second, and then you're going to total it and tear that off. Your second tape will be adding all of the yellow receipt copies. You're going to add those up, total it, and then tear that tape off. And then your last receipt tape will be what was written on the deposit. So you're going to add up whatever was on the deposit if you listed everything out. And that total, you're going to print that off, tear that off, and the 3 tapes should have the same numbers. You're also, to make sure that you have everything in order, you're also, if you're doing your cash receipt spreadsheet on the same day, you're going to highlight whatever was deposited. So just basically take your, highlight those cells, and at the bottom is going to give you a total like what's shown here in this picture. That total should match your 3 receipt tapes. All 4 should be the same. If one of the totals are off, you must figure out why. But this is the way you can make sure that you have accounting for everything that you have, anything that you're depositing or that you have received that day that needs to be deposited. Now, once everything matches, you give the top page of the deposit slip, which is it should be a white sheet, and the money to the person that is going to the bank. You keep the yellow copy of the deposit slip. That goes with your backup. And then make sure you remind the person that's taking the money to the bank to get the receipt from the bank so that they can bring it back to you. The bank, when they deposit everything in, they have a little white receipt that they give to show the total and the date and the time and everything and when it will be deposited. That person needs to bring that back to you. So, looking at a deposit from the top, now this is how you're going to prepare your batch to send to headquarters. From the top, you're going to have the yellow copy of the deposit slip. Underneath that is going to be the bank transaction receipt. That's the one that the person depositing will bring back to you. Then you'll have the adding machine tape that shows the total. Then underneath that will be your yellow receipt copies, and underneath that will be any copies of checks and supporting documentations. Everything should be stapled on the upper left corner of the packet. It may seem like a little thing to assemble it this way, but this is to ensure that everything stays together and it makes life on the end of the person receiving them a whole lot easier. So that's when you're preparing your batch, deposit batch for your cash, your checks, and your money orders. Now, when you are preparing your batch for credit cards, it's a little bit different. They're also considered deposits, but there's less to be added to the packet. You only need the yellow receipt copy and a copy of the credit card receipt. So when you're in Authorize.net and you're printing out the receipt, you normally print out one for the person paying, which is fine. You also need to print a copy for yourself to attach to the yellow receipt. And then that needs to be stapled at the top left corner, or if you prefer, you can also tape the yellow receipt to the bottom of the paper because it's not always full. The receipt paper is not full, so you can tape it to the bottom of that sheet as well. But please remember that credit card deposits are separate from other deposits and should not be added to any other deposit batches. It is a separate deposit. Now, there's also another way that you put together the deposit batch if you're using a desktop deposit. Now, when using a desktop deposit, you will not have a deposit slip because it wasn't taken to the bank. The bank will allow you to print a report of the total deposited. This will be the first page of your packet. So from the top, you're going to have the bank report that you print from Wells Fargo. Underneath that, you're going to have the adding machine tape, and then underneath that, your yellow receipts. Underneath that will be any supporting documents. And then you will also have the sealed deposit bag of checks. When doing a desktop deposit, you are scanning the checks images to the bank. So you end up with the actual checks in your possession. You will be putting those checks in a deposit bag and sealing them. You send that as part of the packet to headquarters instead of the check copies. So if you've done a desktop deposit, you understand what I'm saying. If you haven't, you will be trained on it and then this will all make sense to you. But instead of the check copies, you're going to have that sealed deposit bag of checks. And then everything should be stapled on the upper left hand corner for that as well. Now there are 2 pouches required each month. It is very important that all deposits that you have are in the relevant pouch. Use the cash receipt spreadsheet as a tool for you because you can check the spreadsheet to see, okay, these are all deposited. These are all the deposits that I had from the first to whatever date. Making sure that you have all those receipts that you have listed ready to go in the pouch. The pouches are required to come to us the first business day of the month and the third Monday of each month. So on the first business day of the month, you're going to have everything that was deposited prior to that between the third Monday and the first business day. Everything that's a part of that will be in that batch. We need that information to be able to cross check and make sure that everything that we entered from your spreadsheets, we have backup for. So after you've done all that, you still have a copy of checks left on your desk because we said make 2 copies. That second copy is for your records. So you're going to make a copy of the deposit slip, and then you're going to have those checks, and you're going to put that together. Don't keep those copies and the backups and everything for your records, and just in case we need to refer back for something. At the end of the fiscal year, after the audit, I will email you and let you know you can shred those documents. But until then, you would just keep them until the end of the fiscal year. Desktop deposit. So what's different? I mentioned about the desktop deposit. What's different from that versus going to the bank? Well, in some cases, the desktop deposit is more convenient because you don't have to leave the office and you can deposit even if the bank is closed. We've seen that with development and things like that. They actually benefited greatly from having the desktop deposit because banks are closed certain times of the year, but they were able to still get the money deposited. You only need to make 1 copy of the checks for your records, because remember we have the actual deposit bag has actual checks in it. Now if you have cash, however, you would still need to go to the bank. So that is one downfall of that. Putting your deposit batch together is a little different, as we discussed earlier. So in review, what have we learned? Well, we use internal controls to ensure that procedures are followed and that there is a separation of duties. This safeguards the organization from theft, but it also safeguards you from being accused of theft. We use receipt books to record all monies received by the organization. Each part of the receipt has a purpose. Part of our internal controls is making sure that the deposits are done daily. Reconciliation of the money received and the amount deposited will ensure that we are accurately reporting all revenue for the organization. All deposits and supporting documents must be sent to headquarters to be cross-checked with the bank and entered into the accounting software. Make cheat sheets for yourself for any portion of this training until you get the hang of it. And as I said before, accounting is here to help, so please reach out to us if you have any questions. Okay, so now is your chance to quiz yourself on what you remember from this training. This is the end of this video. If you are viewing it in ESU Online, underneath the video is an activity that I would like for you to complete. It's called Do You Recall? Answer the questions and submit your answers. If you're watching this from the YouTube channel, you will need to log into ESU Online to complete the activity. In order to be marked as successfully completing this training, you must do the following. You have to submit the 2 completed receipts after video 1, submit the completed cash receipt spreadsheet after video 2, and submit your answers to the Do You Recall quiz after this video. Once you've done all of that, at the end of the training in the ESU Online platform, you're going to see a spot called Course Evaluation. You must complete the course evaluation as well. If you have any questions about the process or about the content of this training, my contact information is in the Meet the Trainer section as well. I hope that this training has given you the tools needed to successfully write receipts and create deposits for the organization. This is an important task, so it is pertinent that you do your best. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.